What is going on, world? What's up, YouTube? It's Zero here. Today I'm bringing you guys a brand new episode of the 8 Below Show. Welcome everyone to 8 Below, and guys, in today's episode we have a ton of stuff to talk about, so let's get right into it. Our first topic of the day, guys, is going to be talking about StarCraft and a very notable player in the StarCraft scene who's been around for a long time in StarCraft Brood War and has been absolutely dominant. And the first question I want to propose to everyone is, would Flash, the guy who we're going to be talking about, who has been an absolute dominant and force to be reckoned with in the StarCraft scene, would he dominate StarCraft 2 like he has just StarCraft and StarCraft Brood War over the past number of years? So let's talk about it. So guys, Lee Flash Young-ho is a StarCraft pro gamer from South Korea who played Terran for KT Rolster. He played Terran in StarCraft 2 for KT Rolster until 2015 before returning to Brood War on Afrika in 2016. Now, one thing that's interesting is I wasn't able to really find much information about why Flash decided he started playing StarCraft 2 and then he went back to Brood War on Afrika in 2016. I'm not sure exactly why he made that transition back, but nonetheless, he really didn't, obviously he didn't play StarCraft 2 for that much time, right? And so the question is would he dominate StarCraft 2 if he were to stick with it? Now, there are a lot of questions that come up here. One of them being, could he have just not been very good while playing StarCraft 2? Well, I think that he was kind of a mixed bag when it came to StarCraft 2. Won matches, lost matches, I don't believe he won anything significant as far as, major tournaments and such in StarCraft 2, but it's still Flash. This is a guy who obviously he's been, he was dominating in Brood War, came over to StarCraft 2, and I don't see why he couldn't dominate in StarCraft 2 for a long period of time. I just think he probably figured, I'm better at StarCraft Brood War, so I'm going to go back to that. But it's obviously something that's up for debate. Flash is known for his defensive capabilities, decision-making, and exceptional macro and unit control of maxed out armies, boasting a 70% win rate in every matchup, the longest reign as the #1 ranked player on the Kespa ranking system since Boxer and Nada, the most Star League wins of any player tying Nada, 4 of them won in a single year, and 3 of them in which he had defeated Jaedong, who was considered by many to be the best Zerg player in the world. He is widely considered to be the best StarCraft player of all time. Flash's dominance led him to be included as the 4th member of Takebang Lee Sang and the 5th Banjua. The prize money he won from tournaments in his Brood War career exceeds $400,000 USD. Now, the Banjua, guys, is basically like the greatest all time in StarCraft terms. I always just say the GOAT, right? I don't go based on the Banjua, even though it's kind of a cool name, but I go based on, the GOAT, right? And Flash, I believe, is the greatest ever when it comes to StarCraft, StarCraft 1, Brood War. What I will say, though, is that Flash, I believe, the main reason why he didn't try to dominate StarCraft 2, which obviously he probably did try to win some tournaments. Obviously, he's not going to go into StarCraft 2 not trying to win, but at the same time, he probably figured, hey, I'm not as good at this game as I am at StarCraft Brood War, and I want my legacy to be known for being the best ever at StarCraft Brood War. So that's probably a huge reason why he went back. Well, another thing I wanted to point out, guys, is the notable professional players in StarCraft and StarCraft Brood War, and those being Boxer, who's a very fun player to watch. Nada, what's interesting about Nada, guys, is the genius Terran started his pro gaming career by beating Choi on the Amateur vs. Pro TV show. Statistically, he is the best player in history, having won the most Star League championships, which is 6. And so Nada, guys, a lot of people say is the greatest. Others say that Flash is the greatest. I go with Flash for a couple of reasons. But if we go back, if we kind of scroll down here, what we'll see is a list of the top players ranked by major tournament wins. And Flash has won 7 total championships. So he's won the most championships. So that's why I put him as the greatest. He's won 3 OSLs, 3 MSLs, 1 WCG, and then, of course, that equals 7 altogether. You've got other guys who are incredible. You got Nada and Jadong at 6. You got Boxer at 5. Those guys, in my opinion, are the greatest, right, when it comes to StarCraft. And when you look at those names up there, I mean, those are your top 4, in my opinion, all time. I mean, they're absolutely incredible. Savior is on the outside looking in, but I got to go with your top 4 would be Flash, Nada, Jadong, and Boxer. Absolutely incredible players. It'll be interesting to see how their careers kind of, progress, especially because we were kind of wondering what's going to happen to Flash. How much longer is Flash going to be able to play professionally in StarCraft? And that's something that's going to be really interesting. But the big question, though, guys, is would Flash dominate StarCraft 2 if he decided to come back to StarCraft 2? I think the answer is that yes, he would absolutely dominate StarCraft 2 if he really put his mind to it and really focused on that. I just don't think that he is going to be one of those guys who's going to come back to StarCraft 2 because he just knows he can dominate in StarCraft. And why would you go to StarCraft 2 if you're just dominating here? And in StarCraft 2, there's a lot more maybe, competition, and, people might have like an edge on you because they've been playing it for, say, 5 years longer than you. And so it just makes sense for Flash to stay with StarCraft. But I would love to pass the question on to all of you. Would Flash, or would any of these top 4 guys, in your opinion, would they dominate the StarCraft 2 scene like they've dominated the StarCraft Brood War scene? Let me know what you guys think. I would love to have a conversation about it. So the next thing I want to talk about, guys, is the Zerg, the race in which, at least in StarCraft 2, has been an absolute dominant race, and it's brought up a lot of conversation within the community as well as between pro players as to the Zerg being the dominant race and this being a problem. So the big question is the Zerg at this point being the dominant race, and I don't think there's any debate about that, is that a problem for StarCraft 2? So let's talk about it. So guys, I think that the Zerg as a whole, and we can kind of, as we've looked through history as far as within the StarCraft 2 scene and esports in particular, we can see that, okay, over the course of the last few years now, we've seen Zerg win the World Championship at BlizzCon. We've also seen that many other tournaments are being won within StarCraft 2 by the Zerg race. Is it because a lot of the players, just more and more players are playing as Zerg, or is it just that Zerg is just that much better of a race than the other, than of course the Terran or the Protoss? And I gotta say, guys, to me it feels like the Zerg, maybe there's just a lot of different ways in which the players are able to utilize the Zerg units to obtain victory. But I really think that StarCraft 2 as a whole, overall, is pretty balanced between the 3 races. I just think it's the players that are playing as the Zerg are just that much better than the other players. So, like, just for example, if Cyril decided that he didn't want to play as the Zerg, he wanted to play as, say, the Terran or the Protoss, I think maybe he's not quite as dominant, but I still think that he would be very good with any of those races. It just comes down to, guys, is like the decision making that you're making throughout the course of a tournament, through the course of a game, and it's like real-time chess, right? And in a way in which I just feel that the guys who are playing as the Terran or the Protoss, just like they just clearly are not better than some of these other players, right? And I think if they were, we would be seeing more and more winners at some of these tournaments that aren't necessarily the Zerg race. I just think that Zerg is the dominant race right now because the best players are playing as the Zerg. And that's not taking anything away from the Protoss players, because there's been Protoss players that have gotten really close. There's been Terran players that have gotten really close. I feel that the Terran is probably the one that has had, has been nerfed, and it feels like really the Terran has not won a BlizzCon since probably Beyond, most likely. And the last time a Protoss player won, I think it might have been even longer than that. I mean, it's been a while, it's felt like, since we've seen a Protoss player or a Terran player winning major tournaments. And BlizzCon obviously was the World Championship, like basically the Super Bowl of StarCraft. So obviously that's the biggest event of the year. And the past 3 years, we had Dark this year, we had Serral last year, and Rogue the year before that. And it's basically been a lot of ZVZ matchups, right? Hasn't it all been ZVZ? I mean, it's just been crazy. You had Dark versus Raynor, and lots of Zerg matchups. That's what we've been getting. And is it because Zerg's the dominant race? Or is it just that the players playing as the Zerg are just that much better than everybody else? And I just think that the players who are playing as the Zerg are better than everybody else. Now, that being said, I do think that it's not good for StarCraft. I think it's a problem for StarCraft. And I know the narratives that are out there right now, and some of them we're trying to kind of echo on our channel, right? We're trying to get a Dark versus Serral matchup, like the battle for the greatest of all time kind of a matchup at, the World Championships at IEM Katowice 2021. But here's the thing, is I do think it's a problem because when you don't have some form of kind of some change, right? It just gets stale seeing the same race over and over again. And that's coming from a guy who plays as the Zerg. I love the Zerg and I love seeing the Zerg win. But at the same time, I would love to see a Terran player really be able to compete for major championships. Same with Protoss players as well. I want to see those races kind of really compete against the Zerg, because I think it's good for StarCraft as a whole, right? I mean, look, think about football for a sec. When we think of football, we think of, and I'm talking American football here, when we think of football as a whole, you think of the New England Patriots and how they've just been dominant for many, many years. Well, it's not really good for football. It just isn't. Like, sure, the narratives around, are they going to continue their success? But at the same time, people want to see new teams get there. New fan bases want to see their teams get there. So, yeah, that all being said, guys, I think it would be really good for StarCraft if we had more players that are able, that play with different races, kind of really represent at the World Championships. I think it would be really good for StarCraft too to have a Terran player versus a Protoss player at IEM Katowice 2021 as the World Championship Grand Finals. I just think it would be good for StarCraft too. At the same time, I think that obviously having Serral's dominance and Dark's dominance and Raynor being the upcoming, next player is really good for StarCraft too as an esport. I think it's really good for it to have those players, to see them go deep into tournaments and such. But I think really what it comes down to, guys, is this is kind of a call for those other players out there that play with the Terran and play with the Protoss. Look, like, it's good. You just, put in that work, put in that time, which I know a lot of them do. But if you want to see change at, the World Championships and even at tournaments throughout the course of the year, you've got to be, working harder than all these other guys. And we know that Serral works really tough. We know Dark works hard. Raynor, these guys are grinders. And so at the end of the day, I believe it's actually just the players who are playing as the Zerg are just better than everybody else. Now, the Terran and the Protoss, maybe sure, they're it's not as balanced as it used to be. I just feel that that's kind of an excuse because I feel like it's pretty well balanced. It's just the Zerg becomes overwhelming if you let them, do specific things or, let them dictate the pace of the game. You got to be the one dictating the pace of the game at all times if you're a Terran or a Protoss player. In my opinion, if you want to obtain victory against some of the best Zerg players in the world. But that being said, guys, do you think it's a problem that the Zerg is pretty much the dominant race in StarCraft 2 esports at this point? I would love to hear from you guys. Do you think it's a problem? And do you think it's the Zerg itself that's just better than, a better race than the other two races? Or do you think it's the players playing the Zerg are just better than everybody else? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. So I've compared StarCraft and StarCraft 2 to traditional sports. And I think this is kind of a fun thing to do sometimes, guys, when we talk about different video games, we can compare it to some traditional sports, right? And I've said this, I've been on record saying this, that Call of Duty is making an aggressive approach to be the next traditional sport, right? Where, the CDL is going to be compared, or put in the same conversation as the MLB, as the NFL, as the NHL. It's going to be kind of within those other sports because they're trying to structure it in a way where it's very similar. You have franchise teams and, you have a regular season, playoffs, championship. And I think that that's a really good direction for them to go with the Call of Duty League. And so I compare Call of Duty to some of the biggest, bigger, sports out there. I would say that, like CSGO and League of Legends especially, and even Dota 2, you look at those and those are kind of like the NFL or the NBA of esports. And then you look at like the NHL and the MLB, that might be, more so Call of Duty, but who knows, it might be, changing over time. But what is StarCraft 2 when we talk about traditional sports? And I always say that StarCraft 2 can be best compared to tennis. And here's why. StarCraft 2, guys, I believe, is the most difficult and challenging esport in the entire world. It is the most difficult because it's all up to you as a player to motivate yourself, to, keep your composure if you're down a game or whatever the case might be against your opponent and you're in a big tournament on the pro circuit. It's all up to you. It's a 1v1 esport. Okay, now will that change at some point? Will it become a 2v2, 3v3, 4v4, 5v5? We don't know what the future holds and what a StarCraft 3 might end up doing with that. But at this very moment, StarCraft 2 is a 1v1 game, right, when it comes to the esports scene. And tennis, we all know, is 1v1, right? They have like tournaments where there's 2v2s and such, and at the whether it's the Olympics or if they have it at just different tournaments throughout the course of the year. But overall, it's a 1v1 game. It is the most enduring. You have to have accuracy. Your endurance has to be your endurance has to be incredible. And those games can go so long. I mean, we're talking 3-4 hours, even longer than that sometimes. In some cases, at the biggest tournaments of the year in tennis, you see those guys just going at it, right? And it's a game in which that takes that endurance, that precision, the accuracy, endurance. I look at StarCraft and you can say a lot of those same things about it. Obviously, it's not active as far as, like moving from side to side, but everything has to be perfect when you're playing StarCraft 2. Your macro, your micro, your response time to things, and just your clicks per minute, all of that has to be at such a high level that it's unlike anything else in all of esports. And I believe that many of the StarCraft 2 pros could go on to play other esports and be extremely successful at them. I think the same of tennis players. I believe that tennis players, they are so good at what they do that I believe that they would be just as good at playing other sports as well. Maybe not like, the footballs of the world or, things of that nature, but soccer, you could see them being, playing soccer. You could see them, just there's tons of other sports out there that I believe actual professional tennis players could actually play because their bodies are in just such good shape physically and mentally. Their mind has to be so engaged in those things. So StarCraft 2, in my opinion, guys, is the tennis of esports. And it is the most enduring. The most pressure is on you as an individual and your response time and everything in those lines has to be perfect. When you're controlling multiple armies, I mean, it is chess in a digital video game, right? And it's all about how you react to what your opponent is doing and doing it in a matter of milliseconds, right? So that being said, StarCraft 2 where could it go moving forward? Because we've seen what it is now as a, the tennis of esports, one of those extremely difficult games to play and to really master. And I don't think there's any debate about that. And it's probably why StarCraft 2 hasn't been as popular as a lot of other games, because it's just so demanding. It's so difficult to master this game. But a StarCraft 3, could it kind of change into team-based? And could that become reach new levels and new heights? I think it actually could, being one of the most difficult team esports out there in the world. It's hard to say, guys. It really is. This is a game that is very demanding as far as on a mental standpoint. And physically, just being able to move your fingers. I know it's just your fingers and your thumbs, right? But moving those things, moving your fingers so quickly, to obviously with the hotkeys and the commands and such in StarCraft 2, it is quite remarkable what these players are able to do. And I compare it to tennis, guys. But what do you guys think about it? I mean, when you look at traditional sports and esports, do you compare esports to some traditional sports or vice versa? What do you guys think about that? I do it a lot. I love talking about this stuff, and I love, kind of comparing esports to traditional sports, because I think that the two worlds are kind of coming closer and closer together every single year, in one way, shape, or form. It's not necessarily, the exact same, obviously, and it will never be the exact same, but I think that there's obviously a world in which they coexist and that, they're accepted amongst everybody. But let me know what you guys think about that. Is StarCraft 2 the tennis of esports, and what other games do you guys play? Then what would you compare those to as far as the esports realm and traditional sports realm is concerned? So Bioshock 4, guys, a game in which a lot of people have been talking about, speculating about if there's going to ever be another one made. Well, guys, we got some information, and it's pretty exciting because Bioshock 4, there's been a question as to where is this game? Has it been in development for a long time? Is it just canceled? They're never going to revisit this? Well, in an article that was written by Entertainment, this was written by Nick Romano, and it says, shocker, Bioshock 4 announced through 2K Games' new studio. So where is Bioshock 4? Well, let's talk about it. The announcement of a new video game studio out of 2K Games on Monday gave way to some pretty unexpected news. Bioshock 4. Through Cloud Chamber from the company's publishing label, the next installment of the popular futuristic first-person shooter game is officially in the works. The bad news is developers will be working on this for the next several years per a press release. So enjoy your excitement with a harsh dose of reality. As we continue growing our product portfolio, we remain inspired by opportunities to invest further in our valuable IP. Great people and their collective long-term potential, 2K President David Ismailer said in a statement. Bioshock is one of the most beloved, critically praised, and highest-rated franchises of the last console generation. We can't wait to see where its powerful narrative and iconic first-person shooter gameplay head in the future with our new studio team at Cloud Chamber leading the charge. The first Bioshock was released in 2007, set in the underwater city of Rapture, a place born out of a vision for utopia. But the discovery of Adam, genetic material that could be used to alter a person's DNA and grant them superhuman abilities like telekinesis and pyrokinesis, devolved this dream into a nightmare. The mythology expanded when Bioshock 2 came out in 2010 and Bioshock Infinite debuted in 2013. So really quick, this is super exciting news, right? Bioshock 4 being basically it's going to be coming out, right? It's been confirmed, right? So this game, though, it seems like it's just been in absolute limbo for a while now. And I'm going to say this, guys. You know, the first two Bioshock games, I enjoyed them. I enjoyed the concept of them. I thought it was like a really cool concept. I never really got into it that much. Some of like the characters in the game were just a little bit, I like the characters, don't get me wrong. I just didn't really like, you know, some of the voice acting was a little bit odd, and you know, the story itself kind of took a little bit of some time to really get going, at least for me. But when I played Bioshock Infinite, it all changed. I was like, wow, this was a absolutely, I loved Bioshock Infinite. Even though it was in the same universe, obviously, I loved the concept of being underwater and then in the clouds. And that was just a really cool concept, in my opinion. And I always thought that Bioshock 4 was going to be in the clouds once again, whereas, you know, the first two games were underwater, and then Bioshock Infinite being in the clouds. I thought that like, the fourth one would be in the clouds once again. And then, you know, a while back, I was thinking to myself, well, gee, I wonder if they're just keeping it as a trilogy and they're going to move on from it. Well, obviously, they're working on it. Irrational Games, the team that helped originate Bioshock, was restructured in 2014, leaving the property in the hands of 2K Games. In 2015, the CEO of Take-Two, a branch of 2K, teased that sequels could be on the way when referring to it as a permanent franchise. Bioshock the Collection then came out in 2016 with remastered versions of the three games and their DLCs, including Bioshock 2 Minerva's Den and Bioshock Infinite Burial at Sea. The team at Cloud Chamber will now operate out of two locations, one in 2K San Francisco Bay Area headquarters and the company's first Canadian office in Montreal. Ken Schaefer was tapped as Cloud Chamber's studio manager in Montreal. Kelly Gilmore, Cloud Chamber's global studio head, said in a statement, "We found Cloud Chamber to create yet-to-be-discovered worlds and their stories within that push the boundaries of what is possible in the video game medium. Our team believes in the beauty and strength of diversity in both the makeup of the studio and the nature of its thinking. We are a deeply experienced group of game makers, including many responsible for Bioshock's principal creation, advancement, and long-standing notoriety, and honored to be part of the 2K family as stewards of this iconic franchise." So, here's what I'm going to say, guys. I'm really excited about this. I really am. I'm very excited about this, but I've got some questions about it, and I'm going to be cautiously optimistic about it because obviously we're not seeing Ken Levine being, you know, kind of linked to this project. I'm not sure what Ken Levine has been doing, like what his whereabouts are and what he's been working on, but he worked on the other Bioshock games, and it was really his vision as far as, you know, what this series could really look like and what it really turned out to be. And, you know, like a very iconic, you know, ordeal, right? And he's kind of like the mastermind behind it, and he hasn't been tapped to this or linked to this. So, like I said, I'm going to be cautiously optimistic about it, but at the same time, where has this game been? Well, obviously, it's been in a limbo state for quite some time, and now finally, we have our first real announcement that this game is actually being made, but it's several years away. We're going to have to wait for it, but Bioshock 4, I think it's going to be worth the wait as long as, you know, they really stick to the roots of the game. And yeah, I think maybe expanding it to other worlds and other, you know, ways in which that we can connect to kind of explore the Bioshock universe is absolutely awesome. It's really creative and something really awesome. I just hope Ken Levine is connected to this project, because I think it's going to be so much better if he's a part of it. And that's just my opinion, but I would love to hear from you guys. Are you guys excited about Bioshock 4? Where do you guys want to see the franchise go from here? Let me know what you guys think. So what happened to Left 4 Dead? A franchise and a game that was absolutely something that was a great pastime game, right? A lot of fun to play with your friends, great co-op, and just really an exciting game, and something that we've been wanting to see another, you know, a sequel to, even though it's, of course, we had 2 games that were made. The third one we've been waiting for forever for, because we kind of wanted to, you know, wrap up the trilogy if that was what they were thinking, or maybe, you know, just continue it. Well, obviously, lots of things have been happening over at Valve, the ones who created Left 4 Dead, that being Steam, as well as focusing on CSGO and Dota 2. lots of things going on over there, as well as the Half-Life VR game that got announced, Half-Life Alyx. And so they've had a lot of things going on, and Left 4 Dead has been something that's been kind of like put to the wayside. Well, with some new information, maybe we could find out really what happened to Left 4 Dead, but also, will we see a Left 4 Dead 3 in the future? So let's talk about it. In an article that was written by PC Gamer, Meg Coep wrote Left 4 Dead 3 rumor and leak roundup, everything we know. We compiled years of Left 4 Dead 3 rumors and leaks. Here's what we learned. It's been almost 10 years since Left 4 Dead 2 was first released on Steam. Does that make you feel old? Because I'm feeling pretty ancient right now. There's been no announcement of Left 4 Dead 3 for nearly a decade now, which is surprising because Left 4 Dead 2 ended on a huge cliffhanger because it was enormously popular and successful, and because rumors of a sequel have been popping up for years. As far as we know, there's still no Left 4 Dead 3. Valve even staunchly denied it in January 2020, which of course they did do that, and I don't know why that they would even... I mean, I wish that they would have just said that it was something that was still on their mind, but something that they weren't working on currently. But there have been many rumors to pour over. The lack of an official announcement from Valve hasn't stopped people from creating plenty of hoaxes and fan-made leaks in the last few years. If this doesn't prove just how starved zombie enthusiasts are for even the slightest hint of Left 4 Dead 3, then I don't know what does. We've gone back through the last decade of Left 4 Dead 3 rumors to determine what was fake and what was plausible and what those leaks might be able to tell us. Here's everything we learned about Left 4 Dead 3 so far. So, as of 2020, Valve is absolutely not making Left 4 Dead 3. Early in 2020, HTC China president Alvin Graylin shared a few slides from his talk on the future of VR, including one that said Valve Half-Life Alyx Left 4 Dead 3 will drive consumers and a AAA studio interest. Naturally, folks ran with the idea that this was some insider confirmation of Left 4 Dead 3, despite the acronym being slightly off. Valve quickly stepped in and provided a statement to IGN saying that we did briefly explore some Left 4 Dead next opportunities a few years ago, but we are absolutely not working on anything Left 4 Dead related now and haven't for years. It's clear some people are having fun creating misinformation to spin up the community and other outlets. Unfortunately, for now, a new Left 4 Dead game is not something we're working on. Graylin then clarified on Twitter that unfortunately his LFD4 example was just personal speculation, given that he's a fan of the series himself. Drat. Is there proof Left 4 Dead 3 is in development, however? Honestly, there's little to go on. The series lead writer, Chet Folizek, hinted at the possibility of a third installment in an interview with Eurogamer back in 2012, but we've had nothing but radio silence from official channels since. Folizek left Valve in 2017. We were recently teased with an impressive game trailer that seemed almost official, but unfortunately wasn't, as confirmed to us by Valve itself. In 2016, it seemed like Valve had slipped up by possibly, including possible Left 4 Dead 3 leaks in an HTC Vive benchmark tool built using their Source engine. Valve News Network's Tyler McVicker unearthed several references and assets in its source files, including a new special infected enemy called the Nocturnal, a day-night cycle, and an older male character. Whether he was supposed to be an NPC or a survivor is unknown. A direct connection between the files and the game's development was never found. So, here's the thing, guys. Left 4 Dead, I think, it's a great series, right? It's a lot of fun to play. It's a ton of fun. I'm gonna give you guys something, at least in the meantime, to play. If you're really wanting to play some zombie games, I would highly recommend playing World War Z. That game is absolutely awesome. I think it's a great game. I think it's basically in my opinion, it is a third-person Left 4 Dead game, basically, is my personal take on it. I think that it's basically Left 4 Dead, but in third person, and I think it's a fantastic game. I think World War Z, they did a really good job with that, and I think that's a game that really, even though like I'm not as into, I really enjoyed Left 4 Dead, and I would love to see them continue it, obviously. I think that something like a World War Z can definitely parch my thirst, so to speak, until something actually comes out, because it does look like Left 4 Dead 3 is something that they're definitely not working on right now. Maybe they're lying about it. It's hard to say. I would have to say, guys, that they probably aren't really working on much because they've got all hands on deck with Half-Life Alyx. They're probably also consistently, trying to update CSGO as well as Dota 2. Those are their like big games, at least at this point, and I think it's nice that at least we're going to get another Half-Life game, even though it's VR, which is kind of annoying that it's going to be only on VR. I still think that that's pretty cool that's coming back. So maybe after the Half-Life, game comes out, maybe sometime after that is when we'll get a Left 4 Dead 3. It just looks like at this point, Left 4 Dead was just left in a state of limbo, and for whatever reason, they just maybe felt that there were other projects that needed to come first because it was more profitable for the company, and that would be my best assumption there. Who might be developing Left 4 Dead 3? It was heavily predicted that Turtle Rock Studios, the developer behind the original Left 4 Dead, or Valve, which developed Left 4 Dead 2 itself, would be taking on the development of Left 4 Dead 3. But it seems safe to say now that Turtle Rock definitely isn't involved. In April of 2019, Turtle Rock announced zombie first-person shooter Back 4 Blood, and it appears to be a spiritual successor to the Left 4 Dead series. Warner Brothers Interactive is publishing it. If Left 4 Dead 3 is in development, it seems likely it's within Valve, but that's just a guess based on some of the rumors below, which have never amounted to anything. It's even possible Left 4 Dead 3 was in development at some point, but isn't anymore. And so that's like the other thing, guys, is what I'm getting at here is you got this game coming out called Back 4 Blood by Turtle Rock Studios, which I think is definitely going to be a spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead, which I think is great that they're doing it, because Valve just seems to not really care, right? In my opinion, they don't seem to care that much about the IP. So look, Turtle Rock cares about that kind of ordeal, and so I think Back 4 Blood will be your other option when that releases. I'm not sure when that's going to be coming out, but I think Back 4 Blood is going to be the spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead. And I would also say that World War Z is your other great option. I mean, obviously Dead Island, I'm not as big of a Dead Island fan, but Dead Island's definitely an option. There's options, guys. If you're a zombie lover and you love zombie games and such, definitely Back 4 Blood's going to be probably the place to go. I know World War Z is, and even Dead Island, you might enjoy that one as well. So there's some options there, but it really is unfortunate, guys, that Left 4 Dead at this point has not been announced yet, and it's even being denied that it's even being worked on, because I'm one of those people who believes that it was in like principal photography, or it was at least at a very early state that they were working on Left 4 Dead 3, but maybe they scratched it just because, like I said, they want to be more profitable. Even though Left 4 Dead was successful, it just might not be, as successful as like a Half-Life game. Other than that, though, guys, Half-Life Alyx probably means Left 4 Dead 3 is in the back of the pipeline, which we already kind of talked about. But the recent Half-Life Alyx announcement, it seems unlikely that Left 4 Dead 3 would be following shortly after. Valve has said that Half-Life Alyx is the largest game we've had yet. It sounds like there probably aren't any hands-free to work on zombies. If there is a Left 4 Dead 3 still in the works somewhere in Valve's basement, it will be quite a while before we hear about it. So that's, like I said, guys, once again, Half-Life Alyx, that's got to be, basically what they're all working on. They think that's going to be more profitable, which it very well might be. But I also think that, I just think that Valve's kind of doing these things a little bit oddly, in my opinion, because why is it only going to be on VR? Not everyone wants to buy a VR headset. And I don't know how many people are going to be going out there buying a VR headset just to play Half-Life Alyx. Maybe I'm wrong about it. Maybe it's something that you just are going to have to get. But I just don't know if we're there yet with VR, in my opinion. But here's another interesting thing talking about VR. Left 4 Dead 3 could be VR 2. A known Valve reporter leaker has tweeted a collection of claims and predictions, including Left 4 Dead in VR. It would make sense for Valve to continue rolling with whatever tech it's been developing for Half-Life Alyx, so Left 4 Dead in VR isn't so wild a thought. So, look, I mean, would a VR game for Left 4 Dead be something that could happen? Absolutely. I would much rather not have it be VR, like maybe have it as a VR, but also as, you know, where we can play it on console or on PC. I think that's what everyone wants. I feel like VR somewhat is kind of like the mobile phone. Like if you were to kind of compare it to like Diablo, when Diablo Immortal got announced on the phone, everyone was like, okay, that's fine, but we want the next Diablo in the main franchise, right? You don't just want the mobile game, you want that as well. I feel the same way with VR. Like, sure, having it on VR, that's going to help build the lore, build the story, but we don't just want it on VR. We want it on other stuff too. So I hope that if it is going to be on VR, that's great, but on other stuff would be great as well, like consoles and PC. So were any of the leaks legitimate? It's very hard to believe that some of the leaks aren't real, especially since a handful have unintentionally come from Valve itself. Nothing has ever been officially confirmed, though, leaving the door for speculation wide open. And because some of the leaks are now years old, it's again possible that Left 4 Dead 3 was in development at some point, but has since been canceled. One leak had most of the internet fooled into false legitimacy in 2018, a bogus Facebook page. Cyber sleuths hacked the official Left 4 Dead website and changed the Facebook link to a fake page supposedly belonging to developer Ted Carson, with the header sporting a zombie hand holding up 3 fingers. Left 4 Dead 3 confirmed, right? You can't blame people for falling for it if the link was on the official site. The excitement didn't last long as Valve quickly shut the rumor down by changing the link to the real Facebook page. So Carson's name had already popped up in the rumor mill a few years before, after a Pastebin dump allegedly revealed that he was working on the sequel. His name was also included in a leaked photo claiming to be of the changelog history on a developer's PC screen at Valve's headquarters, showing that he made edits to Left 4 Dead 3 content. Neither were ever confirmed to be true. So overall, guys, most of these leaks, obviously, I don't think they were legitimate, but I do think that there's something about it. Like, obviously, some of the stuff coming from Valve that we've seen in the past, it's like, yeah, they must be working on this stuff. If you watch, the Valve News Network, lots of stuff on there has really shown us that Left 4 Dead 3 was something that was definitely being talked about, was definitely most likely in the early stages, but I think it did get canceled. But like I said, guys, what this really comes back to is it comes back to what happened to Left 4 Dead, and I really think what happened to it was it didn't make as much money as like Half-Life, Dota 2, CSGO, and obviously Steam as a whole for Valve. And Valve, not saying that they're lazy, but what I will say is that they just don't seem to care as much about that IP, and maybe they're just working on other stuff in-house. It's hard to say, guys, but what would you guys think about? Would you guys like to see a Left 4 Dead 3? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. So guys, there's been some really exciting stuff to talk about regarding StarCraft 2, other than obviously the announcement that came out that ESL is kind of taking over the StarCraft 2 esports scene. But something that's really exciting to me is seeing so many new teams and teams that used to be a part of StarCraft. Seems like there's going to be bigger and bigger things happening in the future for StarCraft as more teams are going to be coming into the fold, and there's going to be other teams that seem to be maybe expanding. And one of those things, Victor Goosens, also known as Liquid Nazgul, tweeted out saying, "So thrilled with the ESL announcement. Whether publisher or independently ran, it is crucial for esports to be commercialized. Otherwise, it just becomes a marketing exercise on a timer. We'll have some exciting StarCraft 2 news ourselves later this year." And this is really exciting, guys. For a number of reasons, because Nazgul, guys, he's the founder and co-CEO of Team Liquid. Obviously, Liquid has had players in StarCraft 2 for pretty much since the beginning of the StarCraft 2 esports scene. And that being said, it's going to be really exciting to see kind of what they decide to do later on this year. Are they going to, have more and more players that come into the StarCraft 2 scene? I think this was a huge move by Blizzard to give the reins to ESL and DreamHack and these companies that are going to really promote StarCraft and hopefully make it bigger and bigger over time here. And another team that announced that they're coming into StarCraft is Mind Freak. They said StarCraft has a rich esports heritage both locally and abroad, which is why we knew we needed to take part. And so they welcomed all these new players, guys. We're talking 5 new players that are now a part of Mind Freak, and that is absolutely huge. 5 players coming into the StarCraft 2 scene under the Mind Freak brand. That's crazy cool. I mean, that's really sick. I'm so excited to see where this kind of goes. As far as, when we look at all, different teams coming in, new teams coming in, and then teams that have been a part of the StarCraft 2 esports scene are expanding upon what they already do in StarCraft 2. That is absolutely huge. This gives me so much hope, guys, for the future of StarCraft 2 esports. It also gives me so much hope just for the future of StarCraft as a whole. Like, what happens in these next 3 years if StarCraft 2 just keeps growing and keeps growing? Or they just, obviously, they should probably just keep going with the StarCraft 2 esports scene, but they could also, move all of that hype and momentum into StarCraft 3, which is something that I've been hoping for a long time. So it's been something, guys, that I think this is all incredible news in a best case scenario for StarCraft 2 esports. I would love to hear from all of you guys, though, as far as this is concerned. Like, do you guys think that this is going to be, something that in the next 3 years, StarCraft 2 could really become one of the bigger esports out there, like just a really real force to be reckoned with esport, with more and more teams coming in, more and more support finally coming into StarCraft 2, because we know the history of StarCraft 2 and what happened, that being, of course, the match-fixing scandal, which really hurt StarCraft 2's image. Is it all coming back? It seems like it is, guys, and that's something that I am so excited about, and I can't wait to be on this journey with all of you guys and just watching this kind of unfold before our eyes and doing our part in trying to continue the growth of the StarCraft 2 and just StarCraft brand as a whole, just see the growth of it over time. But let me know what you guys think about that. With teams coming back to the StarCraft 2 esports scene, what do you guys think about that? What do you think the Liquid announcement is going to be later this year? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And I hope you guys did enjoy this episode of the 8 Below Show. And if you guys did, leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, stay positive, and as always, I'll talk to you guys all in the next one. Peace.